My brother destroyed our $5 million company, and somehow my mother decided it was my fault. If someone had said those words to me a year earlier, I would have laughed and told them they were out of their mind. Tyler was the golden child. Tyler was the one mom defended before anyone even asked a question. Tyler was the one who could walk into a room 10 minutes late, forget half the details, and still leave looking like the hero. Me? I was the one who handled problems quietly. I was the one who stayed late, fixed mistakes, and made sure the business kept moving. For 15 years, that arrangement seemed to work. Then everything fell apart. The emergency board meeting started at 9 o'clock on a rainy Tuesday morning. By 9:15, my reputation was hanging by a thread. I sat at the long walnut conference table we had purchased when the company finally became profitable. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, gray clouds covered the sky. Inside, the atmosphere felt even darker. Nobody was talking. Nobody was smiling. Every executive in the room looked tense. The company had just lost its biggest client, a contract worth nearly $2 million a year. That client represented stability, growth, security. Losing them sent shockwaves through every department. I looked around the room and saw people avoiding eye contact. Rachel Bennett, our CFO, sat near the end of the table flipping through financial reports. Kevin Brooks stared at a spreadsheet on his laptop. Even Charles Whitmore, our longtime attorney, looked uneasy. Then Tyler walked in. He adjusted his expensive suit jacket and placed a folder on the table. He looked concerned, but not surprised. Looking back now, that should have been my first clue. Mom entered right behind him. Margaret Sullivan never attended operational meetings. She was retired and owned only a minority share of the company. Yet somehow she had decided to be there that morning. Tyler cleared his throat. "We need to address what happened," he said. His voice was calm, controlled, practiced. "The board deserves answers." Nobody responded. The silence stretched across the room. Then Tyler turned toward me. "The operations. Failures over the last 6 months directly contributed to losing this client." For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood him. I actually looked around the table expecting someone to laugh. Nobody did. Several people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Excuse me," I said. Tyler opened the folder and slid several documents forward. "Missed deadlines, cost overruns, customer complaints. These problems came from your division, Jack." My division. The division that had consistently exceeded performance targets. The division that had saved the company more than once. I felt my stomach tighten. "That's not true," I said quietly. Before I could continue, Mom spoke. "Maybe it's time you took responsibility." Her words hit harder than Tyler's accusation. I turned toward her. "You can't seriously believe this." She folded her arms. "The company was doing fine until these issues started showing up." Fine. The word echoed in my head. The company wasn't doing fine. Revenue had been shrinking for months. Cash reserves had been disappearing. Financial reports had become increasingly difficult to access. Problems existed everywhere, not just in operations. But nobody wanted to hear that. Tyler leaned back in his chair. "The facts speak for themselves." Several board members nodded. Not because they believed him, because they were scared. Scared people often follow the loudest voice in the room. I looked at Rachel. For a brief second, our eyes met. Something in her expression felt different. Not agreement, not pity, concern, real concern. Then she quickly looked away. The meeting continued for another hour, but I barely heard most of it. Every conversation circled back to blame. Every finger pointed toward me. By the time it ended, I had become the convenient explanation for a disaster I knew I hadn't created. As everyone began gathering their papers, Tyler smiled faintly. It lasted less than a second. Most people would have missed it. I didn't. And in that moment, I knew something was wrong. I just had no idea how far Tyler had gone. After the meeting ended, I remained in the conference room longer than everyone else. The rain continued tapping against the windows while the building slowly emptied around me. A cleaning crew rolled carts through the hallway. Phones stopped ringing. Computer screens went dark one by one. Yet I stayed in my chair staring at the stack of reports Tyler had used against me. Something about the entire situation felt wrong. Not unfair. Wrong. There is a difference. Unfair things happen every day. Wrong things leave fingerprints. As I sat there, my mind drifted back 15 years to the beginning of everything. Back when the company was nothing more than an idea shared between two brothers sitting at a diner outside Columbus, Ohio. Tyler and I had inherited very little after our father passed away. He left us a small warehouse, a pickup truck with more miles than anyone wanted to count, and a reputation for honesty that meant more than any bank account. We decided to build something together. At first, we handled everything ourselves. We loaded inventory. We answered customer calls. We swept floors at night and delivered products during the day. There were weeks when I slept less than 5 hours a night. There were months when neither of us took a paycheck because every dollar went back into the business. Looking back, those were some of the happiest years of my life. We were building something. We believed in it. We believed in each other. Tyler always had a talent for sales and relationships. People liked him immediately. He could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with new customers. I was different. I focused on systems, logistics, and operations. I built processes. I solved problems. Together, it worked. At least it seemed that way. As the company grew, our roles became more defined. Tyler took control of finances and major client relationships. I managed operations, staffing, and fulfillment. The arrangement made sense. It allowed each of us to focus on our strengths. For years, profits increased. We expanded into new markets. We purchased a larger headquarters. Eventually, the business reached a valuation of nearly $5 million. To outsiders, we looked like a success story. What they did not see was what happened inside our family. Mom always loved both of us, but not equally. Some people will tell you parents never have favorites. Those people have never lived through it. Tyler could make mistakes and receive understanding. I could achieve results and receive expectations. If Tyler forgot something important, he was overwhelmed. If I forgot something important, I was careless. It had been that way since childhood. Even after we became adults, the pattern never disappeared. I learned to live with it, or at least I thought I had. Over the last year, however, subtle changes began appearing. Tyler started spending money differently. Expensive vacations, luxury vehicles, a lakefront property he claimed was a smart investment. None of it made sense to me. His salary was substantial, but not enough to support the lifestyle he suddenly seemed to be living. Whenever I asked questions, he laughed them off. He always had an explanation ready. A successful investment, a consulting opportunity, a personal financial decision. I wanted to believe him. He was my brother. Then came the financial reports. Delays became common. Information became harder to access. Requests for documentation took longer than they should have. Small inconsistencies appeared and disappeared before anyone could fully examine them. At the time, I convinced myself I was imagining things. Now, sitting alone in that conference room, every memory felt different. Every strange conversation, every missing detail, every explanation that arrived just a little too quickly. One by one, the pieces started clicking together. And then I remembered the look Rachel had given me during the meeting. It was not the look of someone who believed I was guilty. It was the look of someone carrying a secret. The next morning I arrived at the office earlier than usual. The parking lot was almost empty, and the air still carried the damp smell left behind by yesterday's rain. Normally I enjoyed those quiet moments before the building came alive, but that morning felt different. Every hallway seemed heavier. Every familiar face felt uncertain. I spent the first hour reviewing reports, trying to find something concrete that explained the growing unease in my mind. Nothing did. The numbers told one story. My instincts told another. Around 10 o'clock, my office phone rang. It was Rachel. Her voice sounded careful, almost hesitant. She asked if I had time for coffee away from the office. Not a meeting, not a call. Coffee. That alone told me the conversation mattered. We met at a small cafe about 15 minutes from headquarters. It was the kind of place where people worked quietly on laptops and nobody paid attention to nearby conversations. Rachel arrived carrying a leather folder she normally used during board meetings. She sat down, ordered black coffee, and spent several seconds looking out the window before speaking. "I do not think you caused what happened," she finally said. Hearing those words felt strange. Not because I believed I was guilty, but because nobody else had been willing to say it. I leaned forward. "Then what is happening?" Rachel glanced around before lowering her voice. "I'm not sure yet, but there are things that do not make sense." She opened the folder. Inside were printed financial summaries, transaction logs, and internal approval records. Most of it looked ordinary at first glance. Then she pointed to several vendor payments. The names were unfamiliar. The amounts were not. Tens of thousands of dollars. then hundreds of thousands, spread across multiple quarters. Who are these companies? I asked. Rachel shook her head. That is the problem. I cannot find much information about them. I studied the pages more closely. The payments seemed strategically placed, never large enough individually to trigger immediate concern, never obvious enough to attract attention. But together they represented a substantial amount of money. Have you shown this to anyone else? I asked. She shook her head again. Not yet. A knot formed in my stomach. Does Tyler know you are looking into this? Rachel paused before answering. That pause told me more than her words ever could. I have asked questions, she said carefully. He did not seem pleased. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, traffic moved steadily past the cafe windows. Inside, the normal sounds of conversations and coffee machines continued as if nothing unusual was happening. Yet I felt as though the ground beneath my life had shifted slightly. Not enough to collapse, just enough to reveal a crack. Rachel slid one final page across the table. It showed approval authorizations tied to several transactions. I stared at the signature field. My heart sank. Every payment carried authorization connected to Tyler's executive credentials. It was not proof of wrongdoing. Credentials could be misused. Records could be manipulated. But it was the first tangible connection I had seen. Rachel closed the folder. There is more, she said quietly. A lot more. But before I show you the rest, you need to understand something. If these records mean what I think they mean, the missing client may be the smallest problem this company has. After leaving the cafe, I drove aimlessly for nearly 20 minutes before returning to the office. My hand stayed on the steering wheel longer than necessary after I parked. Rachel's words kept repeating in my mind. The missing client may be the smallest problem this company has. That was not something a cautious chief financial officer said lightly. Rachel had spent years protecting the company from risk. She was not dramatic. She was not impulsive. If she was worried, there was a reason. Back inside headquarters, I went straight to my office and closed the door. For the first time in years, I locked it. The gesture felt strange. This building had always felt like home. Now it felt like a place where conversations needed protection. I opened several internal reports and began reviewing information from the past 18 months. One by one, small details started standing out. Vendor approvals that seemed rushed. Budget adjustments that received little discussion. Projects funded despite weak returns. None of it looked suspicious by itself. Together, however, they formed a pattern. It was like seeing individual raindrops before realizing a storm had already arrived. Around noon, I received a message from Mom asking me to stop by her house that evening. The wording was brief. No greeting, no explanation, just a time and an address I already knew by heart. I considered declining. After the board meeting, I was not interested in another lecture about responsibility, but something told me I needed to go. Family dynamics often reveal more than financial reports. That evening, I arrived a few minutes early. Mom's house looked exactly as it always had. The flower beds were neatly maintained. The porch light glowed warmly against the fading daylight. From the outside, everything appeared normal. Inside, it was a different story. Tyler was already there. Of course he was. He sat comfortably at the kitchen table drinking coffee as though nothing unusual had happened. Mom placed a plate of cookies between us and tried to smile. The effort looked forced. For several minutes we discussed ordinary topics. Weather, traffic, local news. Nobody mentioned the company. Eventually Tyler broke the silence. The board is concerned, he said. They need stability right now. I nodded slowly. Then they should know the truth. Tyler's expression barely changed, but I noticed his fingers tighten around the coffee mug. A tiny reaction. Easy to miss. Impossible to ignore once seen. Mom sighed. Jack, you need to stop looking for someone else to blame. There it was again. The assumption. The conclusion reached before the investigation even began. I looked at her carefully. Have you ever wondered why financial information became harder to access this year? Tyler immediately answered before Mom could speak. That is because growth creates complexity. The response arrived too quickly, too polished, as if he had rehearsed it. The conversation continued for another half hour, but little was accomplished. Every question I asked met resistance. Every concern I raised received an explanation. Yet something important happened before I left. While Tyler stepped outside to answer a phone call, Mom casually mentioned the lake house he recently purchased. She spoke proudly about it. Then she mentioned a number. The purchase price. I kept my face neutral, but my pulse quickened. The property cost significantly more than Tyler could reasonably afford based on his reported compensation. When I drove home later that night, I could not stop thinking about that number. Rachel had shown me questionable transactions. Tyler had displayed unusual wealth. The timing matched too closely to ignore. For the first time, I stopped asking whether something was wrong. Instead, I started asking how much had been hidden. The following week felt like living inside a puzzle that refused to reveal its final image. Every day, I uncovered a new detail, yet none of them provided the complete answer. Rachel and I became careful. We stopped discussing sensitive matters inside the office. We avoided company email whenever possible. Neither of us wanted to create unnecessary suspicion. What began as a few questionable transactions was turning into something much larger. Late one afternoon, Rachel asked me to meet her in a conference room located in a separate office building the company leased across town. The location surprised me. The reason became clear as soon as she arrived carrying 2 thick folders. She placed them on the table without saying a word. I opened the first folder and immediately recognized dozens of payment records connected to the same vendors we had discussed earlier. Only this time the pattern was impossible to ignore. The payments stretched back nearly 2 years. Month after month, quarter after quarter. The amounts varied, but the destination remained consistent. Several companies with little public information, minimal business history, and almost no visible operations. I hired an outside firm to verify them, Rachel said quietly. Most of these businesses barely exist. I felt my stomach tighten. What do you mean barely? She slid another report toward me. Some are registered to mailboxes. Some share identical contact information. Some appear connected through common ownership records. I stared at the pages. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. Individually, the transactions could have been explained away. Together, they formed a network, a system, something intentional. Rachel then showed me the second folder. This one contained internal approval logs, access records, authorization histories. Every road seemed to lead back to the same place. Tyler's executive credentials appeared repeatedly, not occasionally, repeatedly. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my eyes. For several moments, neither of us spoke. The silence felt heavy. Finally, I asked the question that had been sitting in my mind for days. How much? Rachel hesitated. We do not know exactly yet. Estimate. She looked directly at me. Over $1 million. Possibly much more. The number hung in the air between us. Even after everything I had seen, hearing it spoken aloud felt unreal. This was not careless spending. This was not poor judgment. This was something entirely different. As the meeting ended, Rachel handed me one final document. Take a look at the dates. I reviewed the timeline and immediately noticed something disturbing. Many of the largest payments occurred shortly before major cash flow problems appeared inside the company. Others happened just before important projects were delayed or canceled. The financial strain that everyone blamed on market conditions suddenly looked very different. That night I sat alone in my home office reviewing every page again. Around midnight, I reached a transaction connected to a company I had never seen before. The address seemed familiar. I could not immediately place it. Then I remembered. Months earlier, Mom had proudly shown me photographs of Tyler's new lakefront property. One of the supporting documents listed a mailing address linked to the same county. My pulse quickened. It could have been coincidence. Maybe it was. But coincidences were becoming increasingly rare. I opened my laptop and began searching public property records. 20 minutes later, I found something that made me stop breathing for a moment. The name attached to the property was not Tyler's. Yet the connection to him was impossible to miss. For several seconds, I simply stared at the screen. The property records were public, straightforward, and difficult to misinterpret. The owner listed on the documents was a limited liability company that had been created less than 3 years earlier. On its own, that meant very little. Many people use companies to hold real estate. What caught my attention was the registered agent. The name belonged to a business attorney located 2 counties away. After another search, I found something even more interesting. That same attorney appeared on incorporation records connected to 2 of the vendors Rachel had flagged. I sat back in my chair and slowly exhaled. The connection was still circumstantial, but it was no longer random. Independent pieces were beginning to overlap. The next morning, I called Rachel before I left for work. She listened carefully as I explained what I had found. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, she said, "I think we need to widen the search." By midday, we were sitting together in a small rented office space reviewing corporate filings, vendor registrations, and archived financial records. The deeper we looked, the more unusual the pattern became. Several companies that had received substantial payments shared overlapping addresses, similar formation dates, or identical filing agents. None of that proved wrongdoing. However, legitimate vendors rarely appeared connected in so many ways. Around 3 o'clock, Rachel uncovered something else. One vendor had submitted invoices for consulting services. Another had billed for equipment sourcing. A third claimed to provide operational analysis. Yet all three businesses listed phone numbers that routed to the same answering service. We looked at each other without speaking. The evidence was becoming harder to dismiss. Over the following week, we worked carefully and quietly. During the day, I continued managing operations as though nothing had changed. At meetings, I remained professional. I avoided confrontation. Tyler acted confident, almost relaxed. If he suspected anything, he hid it well. Still, I began noticing small changes in his behavior. He started asking more questions about internal audits. He requested updates regarding financial reviews that previously had not interested him. Twice I caught him watching me during meetings. Each time he looked away the moment our eyes met. The pressure was building on both sides, even if nobody said it aloud. Then another surprise arrived. Rachel discovered several deleted authorization requests stored inside an archive backup system. Most employees did not even know the backups existed. The records showed approval. Chains that had been modified after transactions were completed, not before. After, someone had altered portions of the administrative history. The modifications were subtle, designed to blend into thousands of ordinary entries. Yet once identified, they stood out clearly. More importantly, the user credentials involved were linked to executive-level access. Access available to very few people inside the company. That evening, I drove home, feeling a mixture of determination and disappointment. Every new discovery pointed in the same direction. I kept hoping for an innocent explanation. I kept hoping another name would appear. Another suspect. Another possibility. Instead, the circle kept narrowing. When I arrived home, I found a voicemail waiting for Mom. Her message sounded cheerful. She wanted the family to gather for dinner that weekend. She said Tyler had exciting news to share. Under different circumstances, the invitation would have sounded ordinary. Now it felt significant. 2 days later, I walked into Mom's dining room and immediately noticed something unusual. Tyler seemed almost proud of himself. Throughout dinner, he kept hinting that major opportunities were coming soon. New investments, new ventures, a different future. Everyone listened with admiration. Everyone except me. Because by that point I had already seen enough records to know one thing for certain. Tyler's confidence was not coming from success. It was coming from a secret, and I was getting closer to uncovering it. The dinner ended with smiles, compliments, and congratulations. To anyone watching from the outside, it looked like a successful family gathering. The moment I walked out the front door, however, I knew something had changed. Tyler was no longer acting like a man protecting a secret. He was acting like a man preparing to leave one behind. The following Monday, Rachel called me before sunrise. Her voice carried a level of urgency I had never heard before. "I think we found it," she said. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from her in the same rented office space we had been using for weeks. Several documents were spread across the table. Corporate filings, property, records, bank authorization summaries. Rachel pointed to a diagram she had assembled late the night before. For the first time, everything appeared connected. One company led to another. One vendor connected to a second entity. Ownership records overlapped through holding companies and registered agents. The structure was complicated enough to avoid casual scrutiny, but simple enough to understand once mapped correctly. At the center of nearly every connection sat the same name, Tyler Sullivan. I stared at the chart in silence. Even after everything we had uncovered, seeing it displayed so clearly felt different. It removed doubt. It removed alternative explanations. Most importantly, it removed the possibility that this was accidental. Rachel slid another folder toward me. Inside were records showing money flowing from company accounts to vendor accounts, then moving again through a series of transfers before eventually reaching businesses connected to Tyler's network. The process was layered and deliberate, not reckless, planned. How much, I asked. Rachel took a deep breath. Based on what we can verify today, close to $5 million over several years. The room became very quiet. $5 million. Nearly the entire value of the company my father helped inspire. The company I had spent 15 years building. The company dozens of employees depended upon for their livelihoods. Suddenly, the lost client made sense. The shrinking cash reserves made sense. The delayed projects made sense. The unexplained financial pressure made sense. We had not been struggling because of bad luck. We had been bleeding from a wound nobody knew existed. Rachel then showed me one final discovery. Several weeks earlier, Tyler had quietly begun preparing documents related to a new venture. Different company, different state, different banking relationships. On paper, it looked like expansion. In reality, it looked like an exit strategy. He was positioning himself for life after our company collapsed. As the reality settled in, I expected to feel anger. Instead, I felt disappointment. Deep disappointment. Not because of the money, not because of the lies, because this was my brother, the person who sat beside me in that diner 15 years earlier, the person I trusted with half my life's work, the person Mom still defended every time questions arose. Later that afternoon, I returned to headquarters. Tyler was in his office. Through the glass wall, I could see him laughing during a phone call. Relaxed, confident, completely unaware of what Rachel and I now knew. For a brief moment, he looked up and our eyes met. Something changed in his expression. Not fear, recognition. Almost as if he sensed the distance between us had disappeared and the truth was finally standing in the room. He ended the call quickly and closed his office door. 10 minutes later, Rachel forwarded me a newly discovered email archive. I opened the first message and immediately felt my pulse accelerate. Because buried inside those communications was something we had been missing from the beginning. Not another clue, not another connection. Actual proof. The email archive changed everything. Until that moment, Rachel and I had built our case using patterns, transactions, timelines, and connections. Strong evidence existed, but evidence still required interpretation. These emails were different. They spoke for themselves. I spent most of the evening reading through hundreds of messages stored inside an old backup server. Many were routine, vendor discussions, payment approvals, scheduling notes. Then the tone changed. Hidden among ordinary correspondence were conversations that should never have existed. Several messages showed direct communication between Tyler and individuals connected to the vendor network we had been investigating. The language was careful, but the meaning was unmistakable. Payment schedules were discussed. Contract amounts were coordinated. One message even referenced delaying disclosures until after quarterly reviews. Every new page removed another layer of doubt. Around midnight, Rachel called. She had found additional records linked to the same chain of communications. Together, the emails and financial documents created a timeline stretching back years. What began as isolated transactions now appeared to be part of a coordinated system. More importantly, the records demonstrated intent. The transfers were not mistakes. The reporting gaps were not oversights. The structure had been designed to avoid detection. The next morning, Rachel and I met with Charles Whitmore. As the company's attorney, he had remained cautious throughout the investigation. He reviewed documents for nearly 3 hours without interruption. Occasionally, he made notes. Occasionally, he asked questions. Most of the time, he simply read. When he finally looked up, the room felt unusually quiet. "You have enough to present this to the board," he said. Hearing those words carried more weight than I expected. For weeks, I had focused entirely on finding answers. Now the search was ending. The consequences were about to begin. A special board meeting was scheduled for Friday morning. Officially, the purpose was to discuss financial recovery plans. Only a handful of people knew the real reason. During the days leading up to the meeting, Tyler became increasingly restless. He requested unusual financial reports. He canceled 2 non-essential business trips. He spent more time behind closed doors. Several employees noticed the change. Nobody understood why. By Thursday evening, every document had been organized and verified. Transaction records, corporate filings, authorization histories, property connections, email archives, independent reviews. The evidence occupied multiple binders and several encrypted digital files. Rachel reviewed the material one final time before leaving. As she packed her laptop, she looked at me and asked a simple question. "Are you ready?" I thought about the company. I thought about our employees. I thought about my father. Then I thought about my mother sitting in that boardroom weeks earlier, convinced that I was responsible for problems I did not create. I am ready, I said. Friday arrived gray and overcast. One by one, board members entered the conference room. Some looked concerned. Others looked confused. Tyler arrived carrying his usual confidence, though it seemed slightly strained around the edges. Mom entered shortly afterward and sat beside him without hesitation, just as she had before. The same seats, the same room, the same assumptions. Yet this time the truth was sitting on the table. As the meeting began, Tyler started speaking about recovery strategies and operational challenges. He barely reached his second slide before Charles interrupted. The attorney calmly stood, closed Tyler's presentation, and distributed copies of a different report. For the first time all morning, Tyler stopped talking. Then he saw the cover page. The color drained from his face. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The conference room felt frozen. Board members stared at the report in front of them while Tyler remained motionless, his eyes fixed on the cover page. For weeks, he had controlled the narrative. He had directed attention away from himself and toward me. Now that control was slipping away one document at a time. Charles calmly began presenting the findings. He did not raise his voice. He did not make accusations. He simply walked through the evidence. Transaction histories, vendor connections, corporate records, authorization logs, email communications. Every piece fit together with the precision of a completed puzzle. Rachel followed with a detailed financial analysis. She explained how money moved through multiple entities before ultimately benefiting companies tied to Tyler's network. She showed timelines, payment patterns, reporting irregularities. The room grew quieter with every slide. Several board members flipped through pages repeatedly as though hoping they had misunderstood what they were reading. They had not. The facts were clear. For the first time since this nightmare began, nobody was looking at me. Every eye in the room had shifted elsewhere. Tyler attempted to interrupt twice. Each time Charles directed everyone back to the documentation. Evidence accomplished what arguments never could. It removed opinion from the conversation. Eventually, one board member asked the question everyone was thinking. Is any part of this inaccurate? Tyler opened his mouth, but did not immediately answer. The hesitation lasted only a few seconds, yet it felt much longer. It was the first time I had ever seen him without a prepared response. Across the table, Mom looked confused, then concerned, then devastated. As more records were reviewed, her expression changed with each passing minute. The certainty she carried during that first board meeting slowly disappeared. Near the end of the presentation, Charles summarized the findings. The financial damage was substantial. The impact on the company was severe. Corrective actions would be necessary immediately. A formal investigation would continue. Additional recovery efforts would begin. When the board finally voted, the decision was unanimous. Tyler would no longer hold any leadership position within the company. The meeting ended shortly afterward. People gathered their materials quietly and left the room in small groups. Nobody celebrated. There was nothing to celebrate. The truth had emerged, but it came at a cost. I remained seated for a few moments after everyone else began leaving. Eventually, I stood and walked toward the hallway. Mom was waiting there alone. She looked older than she had just a few weeks earlier. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she looked at me and said the words I had wanted to hear for months. I was wrong. Her voice cracked slightly. I should have listened. I nodded, but did not immediately respond. The apology mattered. Yet some things cannot be repaired in a single conversation. Trust works differently. It takes years to build and moments to lose. We spoke for nearly an hour that afternoon. There were no dramatic speeches, no perfect resolutions, just honesty, the kind that arrives after illusions disappear. Over the following months, the company slowly stabilized. Employees remained committed. Clients returned. New safeguards were implemented. Recovery was not immediate, but progress became visible. As for me, I focused on rebuilding rather than looking backward. Sometimes people ask what lesson I learned from everything that happened. The answer is simpler than most expect. Betrayal hurts. False accusations hurt. But the hardest part is watching people you love believe the wrong story before they know the truth. In the end, facts mattered. Patience mattered. Integrity mattered. And while the company survived, the experience changed me forever. Because some victories are not about proving someone else wrong. They are about refusing to abandon the truth when everyone around you already has.